When I first moved to the Isle of Man over 20 years ago, the way the island was described to me was 80,000 alcoholics clinging onto a rock. Now that was partially humorous, but I think the drinking culture back then was a lot different than it is today. Back then we did a lot of drinking, booze, and these days the island actually makes a lot of booze. And to find out all about locally made spirits and how this has changed over the last 20 years, I'm going to meet Chris here at the Wine Cellar in Douglas because he knows all about it. And here we are inside the Wine Cellar, a place where I spent way too much time and money, but I enjoy it very much. And I'm here with Chris, who knows absolutely everything there is to know about local booze, or at least very, very much more than I will ever know. And Chris, I remember 20 years ago, when I first came to this beautiful island, the only local booze, or the only local spirit I could really see on the shelf was Manx Spirit. That was pretty much all there is.
Yeah.
But the scene has changed a lot in the 20 years since then, hasn't it?
It certainly has done. I mean, I've been on the island less than you, believe it or not. I've only been here about 11 or 12 years now. But certainly when I first came to the island, all I really remember was Manx Spirit as well. And then quite soon after you had sort of Bifrost come out and all that kind of stuff. And then certainly in the past sort of, probably 8 to 10 years, it's really exploded with the likes of Fynoderee. Now you've got the Outlier guys who are absolutely tearing it up. And then you've got the sort of tag-ons there as well. So you've got Ian down at Foraging Vintners in port-erin, who's he dabbles around with his rums and stuff like that, and is a very creative individual. And you've got some burgeoning stuff coming out now as well. So I know there's a couple of chaps who are doing a proper Manx Whisky at some stage.
Now, where did Manx Spirit come from, or what's special about it? Because I was always wondering what it actually is.
Right. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a misconception with a lot of people that it is Manx Whisky. It's not. There's nothing wrong with that, let's be honest. When it first came out, I think it was sort of early 90s kind of thing, it was labelled as Manx Whisky. Then the sort of Scotch whisky regulator kind of got wind of it, and there was a fairly infamous sort of case about it all. Yeah, so essentially what it is, the simplified version is it's Scotch whisky that's brought over to the island and has the colour taken out and is redistilled. So it's still got all the character of Scotch. And you know, it's a pleasant, very versatile kind of drink, to be fair. It's quite unique. And the chap, I forget his name now, but the chap who came up with the whole way of producing it actually has the patent on this style of producing that kind of drink. So essentially redistilling, taking the colour out, all that kind of thing. And now we have Manx Spirit, which is obviously extremely famous around the world now because of TT and so on and so forth. They now essentially do the same with the Bifrost vodka as well, which is cognac that they bring over from France and do the same with. So again, it's a clear spirit, but with plenty of character in it. You know, there's always going to be the argument of, oh, it's not really Manx or whatever, but actually, you know, the processes that make it the unique spirit of what it is are Manx. You know, it happens on the island, and the guy behind it is you know, very clever guy to be able to do that kind of thing. So fair play to him. And on the back of that, you've got a really burgeoning kind of spirits industry on the island now.
Yeah, that's the thing, because we've moved, like 20 years ago, I worked on the steam packet. I remember in the shop, in the souvenir section, the only spirit that we had was Manx Spirit. There was nothing else locally. Yeah. We've moved on since, haven't we? Looking at this shelf.
We certainly have. I think the ones you can, you know, most people will recognise these days will be Fynoderee. Who?
That's how you pronounce it, right? So,
I believe so. There's always going to be debate. I mean, I've done a little bit of Manx in the past, and the thing I find very funny about the sort of Manx language is there's all sorts of different spellings. There's not necessarily any correct or incorrect way to spell things. And very much like regional dialects in the UK, you get massive regional dialects on the Isle of Man amongst, you know, Manx speakers and things like that as well. So
someone from Ramsey might pronounce it differently than...
But probably, yeah. I mean, quite more often in the shop we will all say Fynoderee, just because, you know, most of us are quite anglicised kind of thing. But yeah, these guys have done so much to kind of, you know, really get that spirit scene burgeoning kind of thing. And yeah, so they started out with sort of the winter one, and they've obviously got a very really good core range of all of the seasons, all with unique various local botanicals and things like that in. Then they've also done the Kerala Chai in conjunction with Kumar Melon, who is a wonderful guy, does talis, all that kind of stuff. It's brilliant gin, one of my favourites, to be fair. Lovely kind of lovely spice to it, that sort of thing. And they've recently done the Eldershee and the Eldershee Rosé, or Roseg, if you will, which we are out of stock of at the moment. But yeah, very, very good stuff. And the sloe gin that they came out with just before Christmas as well.
And they're popular? Or?
Very popular, very popular. I would say between our gin sales here in the shop, which, you know, we chop and change what we have all the time, we probably sell every one in 4 bottles probably is a Fynoderee.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's remarkable.
Yeah, and so, you know, and you never have to work to sell them either. They all sell themselves, which is
The
brilliant.
quality is there.
Yeah, the quality is there.
Because gin, if we're being honest, gin has become a bit of a fashion thing in recent years, right?
Yeah, there was a massive...
Because it's reasonably easy to make if you compared to, say, making whiskey.
There was a massive gin boom back when I was up at the old shop, so we're talking probably maybe between 8 and 10 years ago, the gin boom really started. Before that, I remember we only had about 7 gins on the stock, and I think 3 of them were just 3 different format sizes of Gordons. But yeah, all of a sudden it exploded, and I'll be honest, there were a lot of people, not on Ireland, but elsewhere in the world, who kind of jumped on it and thought, you know what, I can make a gin within a week, put a fancy label on it, put it in a fancy bottle, sell it.
Yeah.
Very quickly, people started to realise just how poor some of the quality of that stuff was. So now it's been a while, but we are really getting towards the stage where the only real gin producers left are the good ones, the ones who were already there and producing good stuff, or the ones who actually approached it all properly. Kind of like Fynoderee, who did it all properly, and they had they started out with the former master distiller, I think it was Tanqueray, who had about 30 odd years experience in a very, very big gin house. So it's a really good start off for them. And then more recently they've had Rusty Figgins, who is a big name in the States, and he was a lovely chap. Unfortunately he's not there now, but I know that the guys up at Fynoderee have kind of taken it on themselves and are still doing an absolutely stellar job with it. I mean, we'll always recommend Fynoderee.
So are we going to have a proper Manx whiskey in 10, 12 years?
Less than that. So I know Fynoderee have... it was quite big news recently, I think possibly last summer, where they were growing, and I think they'd harvested the first crop of their wheat down in, where were they? Down south somewhere. So I think we're not looking at too long until we will see the first Manx whiskey.
Oh, cool.
And as mentioned before as well, you've got a couple of standalone chaps as well who very, very nice guys. I've met them once or twice before and had a little slight insight from them into what they're doing. And you know, you can follow them on Instagram and things like that, and they will take you through the whole process of what they're doing. It's really interesting.
Cool. I'll share the details on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's a minimum of 5 years?
So I'm not...
years until you can call it whiskey, right?
Well, the Scottish laws, certainly for single malt and things like that, minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be very interesting. Certainly look out in the next couple of years to see what's happening, and it's going to be really interesting times.
Now, Fynoderee isn't the only whiskey with Manx ties, right? I see one more. I remember the cotton gin has a tie in some sort.
I mean, we like to deal with lots of different people who have ties to the island as well. In fact, we're talking to someone at the moment, a gin called London to Lima. It's quite a pricey product, but extremely good. And they also have ties to the island as well, which could be quite interesting to get involved in. But yeah, you're quite right with Otterbeck Distillery. So in Yorkshire, we were introduced. I can't quite remember who by. I think it was the actual lady who makes it, who happens to be the wife of Dougie Lampkin, former trials bike world champion who used to live on the island. She I think she's from the island originally. I can't quite remember, but
Is she?
is she not? No.
She met Claire at university and came over here to teach.
Ah, there we
There you
go.
go.
That's the story. So, yes. So she met our owner's sister at university and came over to the Isle of Man to teach. And yeah, and then
from
there, eventually we end up with gin. And very, very good stuff as well. So these guys have been able to expand quite recently to the point where they're doing specialist gins with Michelin-starred chefs. So Michael Wignall is involved in the
nice.
in the making of that one, and then other stuff like the Aitlands as well. So Aitlands at Glenrenner's distillery up in Speyside in Scotland. They produce organic gin and organic vodka. The vodka is hands down my favourite vodka of all time. The gin is up in my top 3 of all time. And they've done some really interesting stuff as well, like a Rutherglen Muscat aged vodka and things like that. Again, we were introduced to these guys from a local businesswoman, and I know that I believe some of the kids from the family went to King Bill's as well. So there's always going to be loads and loads of ties in with that kind of stuff. It would be remiss of me not to mention Seven Kingdoms as well.
Yeah, that's our. Well, it's down near Tesco, isn't it?
Yeah, down near Tesco. Lovely little space down there, and you know, when I first sort of was introduced to them, it was a chap called Ian Warburton-Jones, who is now really making waves with Outlier Distillery up in a sort of Andreas in the old cow milking shed. Hell of a place, that place. But yeah, it's now kind of moved on a bit, so they're producing several types of gin. They do a really nice coffee liqueur as well, and also the Kronkavodi vodka. Which
in the shop.
I have to be completely honest. When I first tried that vodka, I thought there's something not quite right. I think it's got too many tails in, so kind of some of the impurities you don't really want. Then I actually met the current distiller, Tracy, who's a lovely lady. She really knows what she's doing, and she took me through the whole process. And I'm still yet to figure out why they don't sing and dance about this, although it is becoming more commonplace in sort of producing spirits. But the spirit is made from basically beer that's not gone on the turn yet, but about to go on the turn. So it's distilled beer, essentially. So it's reusing, it's quite an eco-friendly way of doing things, and it actually imparts quite a really nice, almost malty character to this vodka as well.
I didn't know that.
And I'm a very big fan of what I like to term as sort of integrity spirits. So things away from the mainstream that aren't filtered 90,000 times and all that kind of stuff, just to take out all the rubbish. I like stuff that has been made properly and with character to it. And that Kronkavodi vodka certainly falls into that bracket for me.
We also have, what else we have? We have rum on the island now.
Oh yeah. So as I keep sort of mentioning, the Outlier guys, so Rick and Ian, have over the past year or two really been pushing Team Isle of Man, really.
You couldn't have a more Manx name than Hooli.
No, not at all. And again, their little social media bits and whatever are brilliant, with them trying to make a Cuba Libre on the top of Snape Fell and stuff like that. It's great fun. But yeah, these guys have had a lot of success recently, particularly with the Hurricane, so an overproof Manx white rum, which just honestly is one of my absolute favourite drinks.
64 RPM. Oops.
Yeah, so it's 64%. So it's kind of designed to take on the likes of Ray and Nephew, which is a very famous overproof rum. These guys were at London Rum Festival back in October 2022. And introducing it to a lot of the West Indian guys who swear by Ray and Nephew. And those guys are completely won over. More recently, it was on Alan Titchmarsh's Love Your Weekend, I think.
Yeah, I've seen they posted about it.
Which is just brilliant. I mean, it's all putting the island really in the spotlight. And it's not, a waffle kind of product. It's proper integrity to it. It's unreal. The things they have done with that are just brilliant. and I should mention they also do the hedge fund schnapps as well, which is really good fun. It's it's not something to be taken too seriously.
Wild berry schnapps, right?
But
because we have a lot of wild berries.
Well, exactly, yeah. So again, it's using those kind of local ingredients
cool.
and local inspiration and making something really fun with it.
And hand labelled for the batches.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's small batch, proper stuff.
Massively small batch. Yeah, I've been up to see them, and what they're doing from such a little area on Ballykelly Farm is just unreal.
No review of Manx booze would be correct and complete without mentioning these guys, Foraging Vintners, who really have come onto the scene strong in recent years.
Yeah.
Amazing what they've achieved in such a small time. They even do the TT podium stuff now, right?
They do, yes.
Which I've got one at home somewhere.
I also have a bottle somewhere, but I forgot to get it. But yeah, I remember my first ever sort of introduction with Ian and Mary Beth many years ago when they came up into the old shop, and they were sort of asking me about sort of the intricacies of setting something like that up. Now at the time I was considerably younger than I am now, and didn't know too much, but was really interested in what they were planning on doing. Here we are several years down the line, and they've got a really good core range of their sparkling fruit wines. So you've got the Benvara, which is the apple traditional method sparkling wine, which is personally my favourite. I really like it. Then they've got the Altura and the Hrunessa, which are both Charmat method. So basically the same way as you make a Prosecco kind of thing. It's rather than being fermented in bottle to get the bubbles, it's pumping it with CO2. But they're really fresh, fruity, very approachable and interesting drinks. They've also recently done the MAP, so Manx Apple Port-erin, as a bit of a homage to the last Manxman to get the Victoria Cross. That was, a major winner for us over the Christmas period, and one or two of our sort of one or two of the bars and stuff who we supply have managed to make some incredibly good and interesting and innovative kind of cocktails using a lot of these products.
It's limited
particularly
to 500.
Yeah, I think that's literally the last bottle, to be honest.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I might have to take it myself, but
I might get it and do a giveaway or something.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, Ian, not only are they producing these things day on day kind of thing, but Ian also produces his own rum down at Foraging Vintners as well, and he's just, he's a cracking guy. All of these guys involved in the spirits industry are, top notch and very proud people as well, and proud of where we are and what the island is all about, really.
It's great to see, because we always talk about economic diversification, and it's sometimes a bit of a dry sort of subject. It's like, oh, do we want more banks or more insurance? But I mean, this is fun economic diversification, right?
Yeah.
This is, something you can grasp and enjoy, and you can export worldwide. But like some of the other famous exports we have, I mean, Manx cheese. You can walk I walked in a supermarket in Toronto, and there it is, Manx creamery cheese. So
yeah, it's
probably
unreal.
going to see a lot more of that around the world, then, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I know Fynoderee is definitely getting a following around the world. These guys, Outlier, definitely getting a following as well. And like we touched on first, Manx Spirit and all that. That's what started it all. And fair play to them. Fair play.
So what do you think the future holds? And is there anything else on the horizon, or are we just gonna?
I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see what the future is going to be like for Manx spirits and Manx produce in general. As we're living in tough times, we all know that. I don't need to bang on about that. But things like this just show, with a little bit of know-how and a little bit of inspiration and X, Y, Z, there's going to be a whole generation of Manx people and people on the island who are inspired by this kind of stuff. You can probably hear in my voice. I get very passionate about it because I'm not even from here, but I certainly feel at home here, and these kind of things just make me proud to be associated, if you know what I mean. So I think in the coming years, certainly when we get Manx whiskey, I think that's going to you know, fairly quickly, or as quickly as a whiskey can, gain international recognition, and really just push on. I think you're gonna see the spirits industry over here go from strength to strength to strength. Really, it's very exciting times.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for making time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And that's about all from here. So I'm just gonna grab some bottles and run. See you next time.